When the Big Sky first came out in 2014, you were looking at something that was pretty much a game changer. I mean, we already had the Eventide Space, but the Strymon was the first to bring that large format, studio quality, MIDI capable stereo reverb to the masses in a way that was intuitive and accessible. You didn't need really the user manual to sit down and work it out. If you were relatively pedal savvy, you could get straight in, get stuck in and get some incredible sounds out of it. And that really contributed to its just explosion. Shortly after its release, the Big Sky kind of became this must-have. I mean, 2014, 2015, Instagram are well and truly established now, and the Big Sky was the one to have, in all of your forums and your Instagram and your all everywhere. You got to have a Big Sky, man. You got to have a Big Sky on your board, and that popularity combined with the fact that, again, it's so distinctive and it sounds wonderful. Don't get me wrong, it sounds fantastic, but the fact that it sounds so unique and is so popular means that you hear it everywhere, all the time. You can sit down and smack a record on and boom, Big Sky, there it is. And a lot of the time, if the Big Sky is chosen, it's for those creative reverbs. It's creative reverbs like your cloud setting and your choral setting and bloom and swell and all of these amazing sounds that you can get out of the Big Sky. But the thing for me is I like something a bit different, a bit quirky, a bit interesting and fun, something that's inspiring to play because not everybody has it. So I think what I'm trying to say is that, at least for me personally, the Big Sky is in danger of becoming boring. So I suppose the question really is, does the Strymon Big Sky hold up in 2022? So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm just going to treat it like a guitar pedal, and I'm just going to demo it to the best of my ability. It's a really complicated pedal, and to properly sit down and take you through every single one of its features would take ages. On top of that, Strymon themselves have done lots of really good, really in-depth videos, so I don't really feel the need to pump out some hour-long monolith going into under the hood and tweaking all of the various things that you can tweak inside the Big Sky. We're going to flick through some presets, and we're going to kind of flick through the first group of presets available on that value knob that I mentioned, and we're just going to flick through the different kinds of reverb available within the Big Sky, the different modes, and I've tried to play kind of a similar phrase and then just hit some dead notes on the guitar just so you can kind of hear that reverb tail and really what the Big Sky is doing. Without further ado, let's have a look at the Strymon Big Sky. So what is the Strymon Big Sky? The Strymon Big Sky is a large format, stereo, in and out, MIDI capable, expression pedal connected, controllable, do everything reverb pedal. It's marketed at guitar players, but it supports line level, so if you've got synthesizers or indeed pretty much any other studio source, you can chuck it through the Big Sky and see what your results are. Inside, you're looking at sharp processors, which I believe are the same type as what's used in the Axe effects. They're managing DSP. They're famous for just generally being great at what they do. You've got MIDI I/O. Everything is controllable through MIDI. It's really, really impressive. You can also control kind of more time-based effects through an external MIDI clock. You can slave it out to an external MIDI clock. So it's for on the magneto mode, for example, which is based off of tape heads, you can get kind of some really more precise time-based effects, which is super convenient if you're in the studio. You've got 12 different kind of reverb models or modes. You're looking at room, hall, plate, spring, swell, bloom, cloud, choral, shimmer, magneto, non-linear, and reflections. We're going to kind of have a look at what those sound like in a second. In terms of the controls on the Big Sky, you've got a value knob, which you use primarily for switching through presets through each bank. The 3 banks are accessible through these 3 foot switches, allowing you to switch quickly and easily between those banks. There's a type knob, which allows you to, it's like an infinite rotary switch. It allows you to switch between the different types of reverb available within the Big Sky. There's a decay knob, which controls the reverb tail, how much of how long that reverb will go on for after you hit your note. There's a pre-delay, which is kind of the opposite. It's how much of your initial note there will be before that glorious reverb kind of comes in. The mix knob, which is how much kind of like dry versus wet signal there is, affected versus unaffected. If you put your mix knob all the way to the left, 0, there's no reverb. Put it all the way to the right, it's entirely reverb, which is actually super cool. Tone is kind of like a low pass filter, so you can use it to kind of cut out some of that top end if you really want to. That's only affecting the reverb though, it doesn't affect the dry signal, so you're more kind of manipulating the actual effect rather than your overall sound. Parameters 1 and 2, they control different things depending on which mode you're in, and mod, which controls the modulation effect applied to the reverb and only the reverb. We're going to tweak some knobs and see what we can get out of it. Let's have a listen. My thoughts on the Big Sky are complicated, and I intend to explore them in another video, which will hopefully be a bit more in depth than this. I'm trying to kind of pull it together at the moment. It's taken some organising. It sounds fantastic. It does. It's super intuitive to use. It's flexible. The reverbs are just stunningly high fidelity. It's amazing. Using it in stereo is an absolute pleasure. It's just everywhere. It sounds fantastic. It's such a ethereal, epic, huge sounding reverb, and also at the same time manages to do the simple stuff really, really well. If you want a really nice plate reverb, it's in there. You want a really nice spring reverb, it's in there. It doesn't sound as good as a real spring tank, but you know, it's the closest I've heard in a pedal. The room reverb is actually really, really useful. There's loads of just amazing sounds in there. You could talk about it for days. The lack of USB, I think now, is a bit of a bummer. Any kind of updates from Strymon that you want to apply to the Big Sky, as I understand it, have to be applied through like an adapter into the MIDI I/O on the pedal. It would be really, really cool, especially in like a studio environment, to be able to have in and out audio through USB, so you don't have to run 4 instrument cables out the back of the pedal to get that stereo in and out. It would be really, really cool, especially if you could integrate all of the MIDI stuff through USB as well. Just be able to plop it down, plug in the power, plug in the USB, and you've got stereo sound and all your MIDI, and off you go. That would be really cool, and that's something I would like to see in the Big Sky 2, the bigger Sky. Price-wise, does sting a bit. The Big Sky, from what I can see online, is £429. The Midnight Edition, which is the black one that I've got here in front of me, was £479. It is expensive, and I think whether or not I keep it is going to be the subject of this next video, in which I'm going to go through lots of different studio sources and just use it as an external reverb unit rather than using it as a guitar pedal. I don't play out and about, I only play in the studio, which means that I'm lucky enough to be able to get a lot of these effects in here, or at least very close to a lot of the effects available in the Big Sky, out of plugins at home. Which means if I can compare the Big Sky as just a reverb unit against the plugins already there in Cubase on my machine, if the plugins are just as good, or if plugins are better, I don't need a Big Sky. To sum up, the Big Sky is great. It's great, it sounds fantastic, it's well built, it's super intuitive to use, it's incredibly flexible. If you are out gigging, or looking to go out gigging, I should say, I know there's not many gigs going on at the moment, but if you're in that world, then hell yeah, absolutely, it's fantastic, and you're going to get tons of use out of it, and you're going to love it. It sounds, again, spectacular. Only you can know really if this is for you. Put the gas aside, really kind of sit and think whether this is going to fill your needs, because it's a lot of money to spend on a reverb pedal if you don't necessarily need a reverb pedal. And even if you do need a reverb pedal, does it need to be as complicated as this one for what you do? Again, only you can answer those questions, but it is definitely something worth considering. Thank you so much for watching. I have been Loz. This has been Raise Hell Recordings. Please do subscribe, because there will be more Big Sky stuffs coming soon. We're going to have a look at the Line 6 Helix. We're going to have a look at all sorts of wonderful stuff. There's going to be vlogs and deep philosophical questions answered and all manner of wonderful audio stuff. So please do like, subscribe, share, all of the usual YouTube-y things, and I will see you in the next one.